Hello everybody, welcome to me reading you another episode of my videos. Sorry I'm a little bit tired. I've just been reading another one of my episodes yesterday, but today, this one might be more than the one I did just now. It's like 3 minutes ago. This one is going to finish off the book, I hope. Right. Plus, when I just looked at the next chapter we're reading, which is chapter 15, is it? No, chapter 16. I was like, when I looked at it, because it was Eagle Strike. Let me start reading. Chapter 16, Eagle Strike. Alex and Sabina were taken to a room somewhere in the basement of the house and thrown inside. The door closed, and then suddenly they were alone. Alex signaled to Sabina not to speak, then began a quick search. The door was a slab of solid oak, locked from the outside and probably bolted too. There was a single square window set high up in the wall, but it was bare and wouldn't have been enough to crawl through anyway. There was no view. The room might once have been used to store wine. The walls were bare and undecorated, the floor concrete, and apart from a few shelves, there was no furniture. A naked bulb hung on a wire from the ceiling. Alex was looking for hidden bugs. It was unlikely that Cray would want to eavesdrop on the two of them, but even so, he couldn't be sure that they couldn't be overheard. It was only when Alex had gone over every inch of the room that then he turned to Sabina. She seemed amazingly calm. He thought about all the things that had happened to her. She had been kidnapped and kept prisoner, bound and gagged. She had been brought face to face with her, the man who had ordered the execution of her father, and I listened as he outlined his mad idea to destroy half the world. And here she was, looked up again with the near certainty that he and Alex wouldn't be allowed to leave her alive. Sabina should have been terrified, but she simply waited quietly while Alex completed his tracks, watching her as if he was seeing him for the first time. "Are you okay?" he asked at last. "Alex!" It was only when she tried to speak that the emotion came out. She took a breath and fought for control. "I don't believe this is happening," she said. "I know, I wish I wouldn't." Alex didn't know what to say. "When did I get you?" he said. "At the hospital. There were 3 of them. Did they hurt you?" "They scared me and gave me some sort of injection," she scowled. "God, the May and Cray is such a creep, and I never realized you were so small." That made Alex smile. Despite everything, Sabina hadn't changed, but she was serious. "As soon as I saw him, I thought of you. I knew you'd be telling me the truth all along, and I felt so odd of not believing you." She sobbed. You really are what you said, a spy." "Not exactly." "Do MI6 know you're here?" "No." "But you must have some sort of gadget. You told me they gave you gadgets. Haven't you got some exploding shoelaces or something to get us out of here?" "I haven't got anything. MI6 don't even know I'm here. After what happened at the bank in Liverpool Street, I sort of went after Cray on my own. I was just so angry about the way they tricked you and lied about me. I was stupid. I had the flash drive in my hand and gave back to Cray. And I gave back to..." Serena said, "Understood." "You came here to rescue me," she said. "Some rescue? After the way I treated you, you should have just dumped me." "I don't know, Sab. I thought I had it all worked out. I thought they'd let you go and everything would turn out all right. I had no idea." Alex kicked out at the door. It was as solid as rock. "We'll have to stop him," he said. "We have to do something." "Maybe he was making it up," Sabina suggested. "Think about it. He said he was going to fire 25 missiles all around the world. American missiles, but they're all controlled from the White House. Only American president can set them off. Everyone knows that, so what's he going to do? Fly to Washington and try to break in?" "I wish you were right," Alex shook his head. "But Cray's got huge organizations. He's put years in planning and millions of pounds into this. He's got Yasser Gregorovich working for him. He must know something we don't." He went over to her. He wanted to put an arm around her, but he ended up standing awkwardly in front of her and said, "Listen," he said. "This is going to sound really big-headed, and you know I'd never normally tell you what to do. But the thing is, I sort of have been here before." "What?" "Looked up what What? Looked like a biomaniac who wants to destroy the world? Well, yes, actually I have, he sighed. My uncle was trying to turn me into a spy, but when I was still in short trousers, I never even realised it. And it's true what I told you. They made me train SAS. Anyway, the truth is, I know things, and it may be that we do get a chance to get back at Crane. But if that happens, you have to leave everything to me. You have to do what I say, without arguing. Forget it! Sabine shook her head. Oh, what did you say? But it was my dad he tried to kill. And I can tell you, if Grace leaves a kitchen knife lying around, I'm going to shove it somewhere painfully. It may already be too late, I said gloomily. Crane might just have left today. He could have already left. I don't think so. I think he needs you. I don't know why, but maybe it's because you came closest to beating him. I'm glad you're here, Annie said. Sabine looked at him. I'm not. 10 minutes later, the door opened, and Yasan Gregorovich appeared carrying 2 sets of what looked like white overalls with red markers, serial numbers on the sleeve. You are going to put these on, he said. Why? I asked. Clay wants you, but you're coming with us. Do as you're told. But I still hesitated. What is this? He demanded. There was something disturbingly familiar about what he was being asked to wear. It is a polyamide fabric. Yes, I explained. The word meant nothing to Alex. It is used in biochemical warfare. Yes, he said. Yeah, now put it on. With Greg suggested, Alex put the suit on over his clothes. Sabine did the same. The overalls covered them completely with hoods that would go over their heads. Alex realized that when they were fully suited up, they would be virtually shapeless. It would be impossible to tell that they were teenagers. You come with me, Yasin said. They were led back through the house and out into the cloister. There were now 3 vehicles parked on the grass. A jeep and 2 covered trucks, both painted white and with the same red markings as the suit. There were about 20 men, all in biochemical suits. Henrik, the Dutch pilot, was in the back of the jeep, nervously polishing his glasses. Tomei and Grace stood next to him talking about. Seeing Alex, he stopped and came over. He was bristling with excitement, walking jauntily. His eyes even brighter than normal. So you're here, he exclaimed, as if welcoming Alex to a party. Excellent! I decided I want you to come along. Mr. Gregorovich tried to talk me out of it, but that's the thing about Russians. No sense of humour, but you see, Alex, none of this would have happened without you. You brought me the flash drive. It's only fair you should see how I use it. It's right. I'd rather see you arrested and sent to Broadmoor, or... And he said... Corey simply laughed. That's what I like about you, he exclaimed. You're so rude, but I do have to warn you. Yes, I will be watching you like a hawk. Or maybe should I say like an eagle? If you do anything at all, if you so much as blink without permission, you shoot your girlfriend first, and then he'll shoot you. Do you understand? Where are we going, Alex asked. We're taking the motorway into London. It'll take us just a couple of hours. You and Sabina will be in the first truck. We just sent Eagle's truck has begun, by the way. Everything is in place, and I think you will enjoy it. He turned his back on them and went over to the jeep. A few minutes later, the convoy left, rolling out of the gates and back up the lane to the main road. Alex and Sabina sat next to each other on a narrow wooden bench. There were 6 with them. There were 6 men with them, all armed with automatic rifles slung over the white suits. Alex thought he recognized one of the faces of Welcome Compound outside Amsterdam. Suddenly he knew the type: pale skin, dead-looking hair, dark, empty eyes. Yasen sat opposite them. He too had put on a biochemical suit. He seemed to be staring at Alex, but he said nothing, and his face was unreadable. They travelled for 2 hours, taking the M4 towards London. Alex glanced occasionally at Sabina and caught her eye at once. He caught his eye once and smiled nervously. This wasn't her world. The men, the machine guns, the biochemical suits, they were all part of a nightmare. They'd come out of nowhere and would still make no sense, with no sign of way out. Alex was baffled too. Alex was also baffled too. But the suit suggested a dreadful possibility. Did Cray have biochemical weapons? Was he planning to use them? I lastly turned off the motorway, looking out of the back flap. Looking out of the back flap? What's back flap? I have no idea, by the way. What's looking out of the back flap? Alex saw a signpost to Heathrow Airport, and suddenly he knew, without being told that this was their true destination. He remembered the plane he had seen at the compound, and Cray talking to him in the garden. Henrique is very valuable to me. He flies jumbo jets. The airport has to be part of it, but it still isn't explains very much many things. The President of the United States, the missiles, especially the missiles. The very name of Eagle Strike itself. Alex was angry with himself. It was all there in front of him, but some sort of picture was taking shape, but it was still blurred out of focus. They stopped. Nobody moved, and Sam spoke for the first time. Out! A single word. As Alex went first and helped Sabina down, he enjoyed feeling her hand in his. There was a sudden loud roar overhead, and he looked up just in time to see a rare aircraft sweeping down out of the sky. He saw where they were. They had stopped on the top floor of an abandoned multi-story car park, a legacy of Sir Arthur Lunt, Cray's father. It was on the edge of the Heathrow Airport, near the main runway. The only car apart from their own was a burnt-out shell. The ground was strewn with rubble and old oil drums. I couldn't imagine why they had come here. Cray was waiting for a signal. Something was going to happen, but what? Alex looked at the watch. It was exactly 2:30. Cray called him over. He had travelled in the jeep with Henrique, and now Alex saw that there was a radio transmitter on the back seat. Henrique turned a dial. There was a loud whine. Cray was sadly making the performers out of this. The radio had been connected to a loudspeaker, so they could all hear. It's about time, Cray said. He googled. Exactly on time. Alex hooked up. A second plane was coming in. It was still too far away and too high up to be seen clearly, but even so, he thought he recognized something about its shape. Suddenly a voice came out of the loudspeaker in the jeep. Attention, air traffic control. This is Millennium Air Flight 188 from Amsterdam. We have a problem. The voice had been speaking in English, but with a heavy Dutch accent. There was a pause as an empty MC on the end. The woman's reply. What is MA 118? What is your problem, over? Mayday, mayday. Mayday, 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 mayday. The voice from the aircraft was suddenly louder. This is flight MA118. We have a fire on board. Request immediate clearance to land. On a pause, I could imagine the panic in the control tower at Heathrow. But when the woman spoke again, her voice was professionally calm. Roger your mayday. We have you on radar. Steer on 0 to 90. Descend 3,000 feet. Air traffic control. This is the radio crackled again. This is Captain Stryrodier from flight MA118. I have to advise you we are carrying extremely hazardous biochemical products on behalf of the Ministry of Defence. We have an emergency situation here. Please advise. The Heathrow woman replied immediately. We need to know what is on board, where is it, and what other qualities. Air traffic control. We are carrying a nerve gas. We cannot be more specific. It is highly experimental and it's been dangerous. There are 3 canisters in the hold. We have a fire in the main cabin. Mayday, mayday. Alex looked again. The plane was much lower now, and he knew exactly where he had seen it before. It was the cargo plane that he had seen in the compound outside Amsterdam. Smoke was streaming out of the side, and even as Alex watched, flames suddenly exploded, spreading over the wing. During watching, it would seem that the plane was in terrible danger, but Alex knew that the whole thing had been faked. The control tower was monitoring the plane. Flight MA118. The emergency service has been alerted. We are beginning immediate evacuation of the airport. Please proceed to 27 left. You are clear to land. At once, Alex heard the sound of alarm coming from over the airport. The plane was still two or 3,000 feet up. The flames trailing behind it. He had to admit that he looked totally convincing. Suddenly, everything was starting to make sense. He was beginning to understand Quay's plan. "Time to roll," Quay announced. Alex and Sabina were led back to the truck. Quay climbed into the jeep next to Henry, who was driving, and they set off. It was difficult for Alex to see what was happening now, as he only had a view out of the back. But he guessed that they had left the car park and they were following the perimeter fence around the airport. The alarm seemed to have got louder, presumably they were getting nearer to them. A number of police sirens erupted in the distance, and they noticed that the road had got busier as cars tore past. The driver was desperate to get away from the immediate area. What's he doing?" Sabina said. "The plane isn't on fire," Alex said. "Quay's tricked them. He's evacuating to the airport. That's how we're going to get in." But why?" Enough. Yes, and so you don't speak now. He reached under his seat and produced 2 gas masks, which he handed to Alex and Sabina. "Put these on." "Why do I need it?" Sabina said. Just do as I say." "But it'll ruin my makeup." She put it on anyway. Alex did the same. All the men in the truck, including SN, had gas masks. Suddenly they were completely anonymous. Alex had to admit that there was certain genius to Quay's scheme. It was a perfect way to break into the airport, but now all the security personnel would know that a plane carried a deadly nerve agent was about to crash land. The airport was in the throes of a full-scale emergency evacuation. When Quay and his miniature army arrived at the main gate, it was unlikely that anyone would ask for ID in their biochemical suits. They looked official. They were driving official-looking vehicles. The fact they had arrived in the airport in record time, they wouldn't be as suspicious. It was more like a miracle. It happened exactly as Alex suspected. The jeep stopped at a gate outside of the airport. The guards were both young. One of them had only been in the job for a couple of weeks, was already panicking, faced with a red alert. The cargo plane hadn't landed yet, but it was getting closer and closer, stumbling out of the air. The fire was worse, clearly out of the control. And here were 2 trucks and an army vehicle filled with men in white suits, hoods, and gas masks. He wasn't going to argue. Quay leaned out of the door. His face was anonymous as the rest of his men. His face concealed behind the gas mask. "Ministry of Defense," he said. He snapped. "Biochemical Weapons Division. Go ahead." The guards couldn't hurry through fast enough. The plane touched down. 2 fire engines and an assortment of emergency vehicles began to race towards it. The truck overtook the jeep and then came to a halt. Looking out the back, Alex saw everything. It started with the mayor and Quay. He was sitting in the passenger seat of the jeep and had produced the radio transmitters. "It's time to raise the stakes," he said. Let's make this a real emergency." Somehow, Alex knew what was about to happen. Quay pressed the button, and at once the plane exploded, disappearing into a huge fireball that erupted out of it. At the same time, consumed it. Fragments of wood and metal spun in all directions, burning aviation fuel split over the runway, seeming to take light too. The emergency vehicles had found out as if to surround the wreckage. But then Alex realized that they had received new orders from the control tower. There was nothing more they could do. The pilot and his crew on the plane were certainly dead. Some unknown nerve gas couldn't even now be leaking in the atmosphere. "Turn around! Get out of there! Go!" Alex knew that Quay had cheated whoever had flown the plane, killing them with the exact same cold-blooded ruthless with which he could kill anyone who got in his way. The pilot would have been paid to send out the false alarm and then to fake a crash landing. He wouldn't have known that there was a load of plastic explosives concealed on board. He might have expected a long stay in an English prison. He hadn't been told his job was to die. Sabina was watching. I couldn't see anything on her face. The gas mask had fogged up. but her head was turned away. The moment he felt desperately sorry for her. What had she got into? And to think that all this had become in with a holiday in the south of France. It just forward. They were inside the airport. Cray had managed to short-circuit the entire security system. Nobody would notice them, at least not for a while. But the questions remained. What had they come for? Why here? And then they slowed down the one last time. And at last everything made sense. They had stopped in front of a plane, a Boeing 747-200B, but it was much more than that. Its body had been painted blue and white with the words United States of America written across the main faceplate, and the stars and stripes and blazed on its tail, and there was an eagle clutching on its shield just below the door. The mocking Alex for having guessed before. The eagle that had given Eagle Strike its name, it was potentially shielded, and this was the presidential plane, Air Force One. This is the reason why the May Gray was here. I could see it on television in Blunt's office. The plane that had brought the American president to England. It flew him all over. It flew him all over the world, traveling at just below the speed of sound. Alex knew very little about it, but then virtually all the information about Air Force One was restricted. But one thing he did know, just about anything that could be done in White House could be done on the plane, even while it was in the air. Just about anything, including starting a nuclear war. There were two men standing guard on the steps that led them up to the door. At the main cabin, they were soldiers dressed in kayak combat gear and black berets. As Craig got out of the car, they brought up their guns, moving into a position of alert. They had heard the alarms. They knew that something was happening at the airport. They weren't sure what it had to do with them. "What's going on?" one of them asked. The mayor and Craig said nothing. He then come up, and suddenly he was holding a pistol. He fired twice. The bullets making hardly any sound, or perhaps the noise of the gun was somehow dwarfed by the immensity of the place. The soldiers twisted round and fell onto the tarmac. Nobody had seen what had happened. All the eyes were on the runway and the still burning debris on the cargo plane. I felt a surge of hatred for Quay for his cowardice. The American soldiers hadn't been expecting trouble. The president was nowhere near the airport. Air Force One wasn't due to take off for another day. Quay could have knocked them out. He could have taken them prisoner, but it had been easier to kill them. Already he was putting the gun back into his pocket. 2 human lives simply brushed aside and forgotten. Alex Sabine stood next to him, staring in disbelief. Wait here," Quay said. He had removed his gas mask, his face flushed with excitement. "Yes, then Gregor, I waited. Half the men ran up the steps onto the plane. The other half stripped off the white suits to reveal American Army uniforms underneath. Quay hadn't missed his trick. If anyone did turn their attention away from the cargo plane, it would seem that Air Force One was under heavy guard and that everything was normal. In fact, nothing could have been further from the truth. More gunfire came from inside the plane. Quay was taking no prisoners. Anyway, in his way, was being finished without hesitation, without mercy. Quay stood next to Alex. "Welcome to the VIP lounge," he said. "You might like to know that's what they call this whole section of the airport." Just testing out my strength on a rubber band. Wait, why exactly am I testing my strength on a rubber band? Anyway, never mind. He pointed to a glass and he pointed at a glass and a steel building on the other side of the plane. That's where they all go. Presidents, prime ministers, I've been in there once or twice. As a matter of fact, very comfortable and no queues for passport control. "Let us go," Alex said. You don't need us. Would you rather I killed you now instead of later?" Sabine glanced at Alex but said nothing. The son appeared at the door of the plane and signalled. Air Force One had been taken. There was no one left to fight. Quay's men filed past him, and made their way down the stairs. One of them had been wounded. There was blood on the sleeve of a suit. So at least someone tried to fight back. I think we can go on board, Quay said. All his men were now dressed as American soldiers, forming a half circle around the steps leading up to the door of the plane. A defensive wall in the event of the counter-attack. Henry had already climbed up. Alex and Sabina followed him. Quay was right behind him, holding his gun. So there was only going to be the 5 of them on the plane. Alex filled the information somewhere in his mind. At least the odds had been shortened. Sabina was numb, walking as if hypnotized. Alex knew what he was feeling. His own leg almost refused to carry him. To take these steps reserved for the most powerful man on the planet. As the door loomed up ahead with another eagle mounted on its side, he saw Yasen appear from inside Dragon, a body dressed in blue trousers and a blue waistcoat. One of the air stewards, another innocent man sacrificed for Quay's mad dream. Alex entered the plane. Air Force One was like was like nothing that looked like Air Force One. It was like no other planes in the world. There were no seats crammed together, no economy class, nothing that looked even remotely from the inside of an ordinary jumbo jet. It had been modified for the president and his staff. Over 3 floors, offices and bedrooms, a conference room and kitchen, 4,000 square feet of cabin in space. Somewhere inside there was an operating table. Although it had never been used, Alex found himself in an open plan living area. Everything had been designed for comfort, with a thick pile of carpets, low sofas and armchairs, and tables with old-fashioned electric lamps. The predominant colours were beige and brown, softly lit by coloured thousands of lights recessed into the ceiling. A long corridor led down one side of the plane with a series of smart offices and seating areas branching off. There were more sofas and occasional tables, and intervals all the way down. The windows were covered with foreign-coloured blinds. Yasen had cleared away the bodies, but he had left a blood stain on the carpet. It was horribly noticeable. The rest of the plane had been cleaned and vacuumed until it was spotless. There was a real trolley against one of the walls, and Alex noticed the gleaming crystal glasses, each one engraved with the words Air Force One, and a picture of the plane. A number of bottles stood on the lower shelf of the trolley. Rare malt whiskies, and vintage wines. It was a service with a smile. All right, to find this plane was a privilege, enjoyed by only a handful of people, and they would be surrounded by total luxury. Even Quay, who had his own private jet, looked impressed. He glanced at Yasen. Is that it? He said, have we killed everyone who needs killing? Yasen nodded. Let's get started. I'll take Alex. I want to show him. You ain't him. You ain't here. Quay nodded at Alex. Anthony had no choice. He took one last glance at Sabina and tried to tell her, with the lights, I'll think of something to get us out of here, but somehow he doubted it. The enormity of Eagle's head finally hit him. Air Force One, the presidential plane, had never been invaded in this way, and no wonder nobody else would have been mad enough to consider. Quay jabbed him with a gun, forcing him up a stairway. Half of hope they would meet someone, just one soldier or member of the cabin crew who had managed to escape and who might be lying in wait. But he knew that Yasen would have been throughout his work. He had told Quay how the entire crew had been dealt with. Alex didn't think how many men and women there might have been on board. They entered a room filled with electronic equipment from floor to ceiling. Hugely sophisticated computers stood next to elaborate telephone and radar system with banks of buttons, switches and blinking lights. Even the ceiling was covered with machinery. Alex realized he was standing in the communications center of Air Force One. Someone must have been working there when Quay took over the plane. The door wasn't locked. Nobody at home? Quay said. I'm afraid they weren't expecting visitors. We have the place to ourselves. He took the flash drive out of his pocket. This is the moment of truth, Alex, he said. This is all thanks to you, but do please stay very still. I don't want to kill you until you've seen this, but if you so much as blink, I'm afraid I may have to shoot you. Quay knew what he was doing. He laid the gun on the table next to him so that it would never be more than a few centimeters from his hand. Then he opened the flash drive and plugged it into a socket in front of the computer. Finally, he sat down and tapped out a series of commands on the keyboard. I can't explain exactly how this works, he said, and then he continued. We don't have time anyway. I've always found computers and all that stuff really dreary. These computers here are just like the ones in the White House. And they're connected to Mount Cheyenne, which is where our American friends have their top secret underground nuclear weapons control center. And the first thing you need to set off the nuclear missiles are the launch codes. They change every day, and they're sent to the president wherever he is. By a national security agency. I'm not boring you, Alex. As did reply. He was looking at the gun, measuring distance. The president carries them with him all the time. Did you know that President Carter actually lost the codes once? He sent them to the dry cleaners, but that's another story. The codes are transmitted by Milstar. The military strategic and tactical relay system. It's a satellite communication system. One set goes to the Pentagon, and one set comes here. The codes are inside the computer, and there was a buzzing sound, and a number of lights on the control panel suddenly went green. Quay uttered a cry of pleasure. His face glowed in the reflection. And here they are. Wasn't that quick? Stranger, it may seem. I am now in control of just about all the nuclear missiles in the United States. Isn't that fun? He tapped more quickly on the keyboard, and for a moment he was transformed. As his fingers danced over the keys, I was reminded of the man Quay he had seen playing the piano at Earl's Court and Wembley Stadium. There was a cool, dreamy smile on his face, and his eyes were far away. There is, of course, a fail-safe defense, but built into it all. Even the Americans won't want just anyone firing off their missiles. Would they? No. Only the president can do it because of this. Quay took out a small silver key out of his pocket. I guess there might be a duplicate, also provided by Charlie Roper. Quay inserted it into the workstation and opened it. There are 2 red buttons underneath. One to launch the missiles, the other marked with the 2 words, which were of more interest to Alex: self-destruct. Quay was only interested in the first of them. This is the button, he said. The big button, one you read all about. The button that means the end of the world, but it's fingerprint sensitive. It's fingerprint sensitive. If it isn't the president's finger, then you might as well go home. He reached out and pressed the launch button. Nothing happened. Do you see? It doesn't work. Then all this has been a waste of time, Alex said. Oh no, my dear Alex, because you see, remember that I really have privilege, that very great privilege of shaking hands with the president. I insisted on it. It was that important to me, but I had special latex coating on my hand, and when we shook, I took a cast off his fingers. Isn't that clever? Quay removed what looked like a thin plastic glove from his pocket and slipped it onto his hand. I saw that the fingers of the glove were moulded. He understood the president's fingerprints had been duplicated onto the latex surface. Quay now had the power to launch a nuclear attack. Wait a minute, I said. Yes, you're wrong. You're terribly wrong. You think you're making things better, but you're not. He tried to find the word skill. you'll kill thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. Most of them will be innocent. They won't have anything to do with drugs. There have to be sacrifices. But if 1,000 people die to save 1,000,000, what's so wrong with that? Everything is wrong with it. What about the fallout? Have you thought what it will do to the rest of the planet? I thought you cared about the environment, but you're going to destroy it. It's a price worth paying. And one day the whole world would agree. You've got to be cruel to be kind. You only think that because you're insane. Cray reached for the launch button. Alex died for what he no longer cared about his own safety. He couldn't even protect Sabrina. The two of them might be killed, but he had to stop this happening. He had to protect millions who would die all over the world if Cray was allowed to continue. 25 nuclear missiles were falling simultaneously out of the sky. It was beyond Cray's imagination, but Cray had been expecting to move. Suddenly, the gun was in his hand, and his arm was swinging it through the air. Alex felt a savage blow on the side of his head as Cray struck him. He was thrown back dazed. The room swam in front of his eyes, and he stumbled and fell. Too late. Cray muttered. Then he reached out and drew a circle in the air with a single finger. He paused, then he sat down. Last chapter, everybody.